Hello, my name is Bill Haley for Haley2024, the movement's government reform ideas. So how will the Haley 2024 reforms, the competitive governance reforms, affect government's share of GDP? So that's a very difficult question to answer because it deals with definition. What is government? How much is government control right now? Over the last several years, government has grown tremendously compared as a percentage of GDP under their control. Let's go over some of the issues real quick. First of all, this blog was created in 2018. I'm doing the video in 2023, so I'm updating it a little bit, but it's basically the same, so it has a connecting blog to it. In 2020, the government's share of GDP under COVID and the like jumped from the low 40%. This is state, federal, and local, all three combined. I have a good website to go to that, not my website, but I found a good website that combines all three together and gives you a really good understanding of the percentage of GDP that government's controlling and the different categories and the like. So I use that. But it jumped over 50%. Now, is that the baseline or is that one-offs? Some of that is baseline, some of that is one-offs. So it has jumped tremendously. So it's very, very difficult going back to 2018 numbers, 2013 to 2018 timeframe to what it is now in 2023. So it's difficult to do it just definitionally and because everything's changing so quickly. The increase was in so many budget categories, from healthcare to education to welfare to unemployment compensation and like. And the regulations they put into effect really caused a lot of havoc as well. In my opinion, they did a lot of damage with what they did over 2020, 2021, 2022, even 2023 from COVID regulations and the like. Let's keep on going. The baseline jumped quickly and it's hard to know where it will settle. One-time investments were massive and destructive. In my opinion, they were destructive. Other people, they liked it. The one-time investments got built into the baseline, or a large part of it at least. It dropped down a little bit, but a big part of the jump stayed up. The federal, state, and local, again, this is all spending because a lot of federal gets knocked down to state with state funding. The federal funding the state and the state funding the local, so it gets very confusing. But the website I found does a really good job of combining all three of them. The federal is gaining considerable power by funding state and local. So when the federal says we're going to take care of a lot of these issues, they put strings attached and they start getting a lot of controls over it. A lot of healthcare controls, Medicare, Medicaid, a lot of controls over unemployment. If you take this money on businesses, then you have to do this, that, and other thing. And it really causes a lot of problems. Regulations so strong, forcing businesses to contribute to benefits. So another big issue surrounding this is the healthcare insurance that businesses give to their employees. Is that government spending or not? In some ways, you can declare it government spending, even though they're not directly doing it. But because of the regulations and the strong regulations surrounding that, it kind of forces the businesses to do what the government's wanting to do. Plus, it's not just willy-nilly or into the free enterprise system. It's highly regulated insurance market for healthcare in order to get that tax deduction and the like. And these rarely make the statistics of government spending. So the healthcare spending, the spending on other, the government's mandate or heavy government regulations that look like mandates or act like mandates or effectively mandates. It doesn't go into government spending, although it is government mandates to force businesses to do it. So it's similar to it. The Federal Reserve is acting like a major taxing authority with the inflation tax. That is huge, especially 2007, 2008 was big into this, 2009, but then it took a big jump in 2020 through for the next 3 years. We're 2023 right now, and 10% inflation Real inflation is probably even higher. It is really causing a lot of problems for a lot of people, and that is a real tax. And look at the numbers in 2013 through 2018. So a lot of this blog and a lot of these numbers I did was back then. So it's greatly grown since then, but it's very, very difficult, like I'm talking to you about. Okay, let's keep on going. So Social Security is about 18% of the budget, or about 77% of GDP. Healthcare is about 24% of the overall government budget. Again, federal, state, and local, but about 9% of GDP. That's government's portion. The individual's proportion, or company's proportion. Again, that's more like government spending, because they force businesses through regulations and the like, effectively force them to spend money on healthcare and health insurance in the manner that they tell you. Education is about 5% of GDP, about 12% of the overall budget. Welfare, 5%, but that doesn't even come close to what that is, because welfare is in so many different areas of healthcare and different areas. Even the tax code is a huge welfare contributor, and it's not counted in these numbers. So again, definitionally, it's very hard to tell you how much welfare there is out there, because it is in so much, in so many different categories, and the tax code is a huge one. But I put it here as 5% or 2% of GDP, but it's much more than that, because it's other categories has it. Transportation, about 5% of government spending, or about 2% of GDP. And bureaucracies and regulations, about 3% of GDP, which is 7% of the overall spending. And again, that's definitionally very hard to deal with. In Haley 2024 reforms, I take all that down to get rid of about 72% of the government budget. Now, some of it will go to competitive government in their budgets, and some of that is mandatory. So again, definitionally, it's very, very difficult. But we drop government spending actually from about 2016, 2018 numbers, from about 38% of GDP to about 10% of GDP. But again, there's a lot of flexibility and definitional challenges we can do in that number. Now, all that stuff still needs to be done. Let's get to that. We're going to have some slides on that, so let's not spend too long on there. What is healthcare and what is welfare? What is retirement versus Medicare? So all these are definitionally challenging to define where the line is, or what category it belongs into. And then again, tax deductions and stuff like that for healthcare, health insurance, that is huge part of government spending, because in the tax code, there's a tremendous amount of government spending in the tax code. And again, that's definitional challenges. People don't have to accept that. I understand that. I can make a case for it, but I don't want to get stuck on definitions too much. I'm just telling you that there's challenges to the definitions we're talking about. This is before police and military reforms. So I did this before police and military reforms. 5% going to the military is what I want to go to, foreign policy and the military, and that's going to be a sales tax. So we'll get into that. So I just want you to see that screen again, but we're not going to stay there right now. Okay, the sector board is monopolized government. So within the CRA structure, we have the competitive government, but then one level above that is monopolized government, and they don't deal with but less than 1% of the budget. They deal with very, very low percentage of the budget. Almost all the spending goes through competitive government. The monopolized government can tell the competitive government that they have to have certain requirements to be across the board, but that's not much, and that's only in certain sectors of the governance. So again, definitionally, we're challenged right now, because there's so many areas of government that we're talking about, and we'll go through many of the areas real quick. The CRA, or the competitive governance, is like free enterprise. So you use the word governance here, and they are governments, legislative, executive, judicial power, but competitive governance are member only. you have to select one of the CRAs. You have to select a government, a competitive government, but then they only govern themselves and they have their fees. You can call them taxes if you will, or fees, or however you want to define it. Words are definitely challenged here. There's no doubt about it. Every word I'm saying is, you have to try to take it the way I mean it. And I'm trying my best to mean it the way normal people will understand it, but too many words have multiple definitions and opposing definitions, such as rights. The word rights has opposing definitions, and we'll get into that in other videos. However, how should we define mandatory spending through competitive governance? So I have a system for we get rid of welfare altogether, but everybody has to give towards charity. So it's mandatory that you give through charity, but you have many different charitable philosophies you can decide to give to. There's many ways you can give to charities within your charitable philosophy, how you want to give to the poor and how you want the poor to be funded in the charity system. So yeah, there's a mandate there, but it never goes to quote unquote the government, the monopolized government. It goes through competitive governments. Where the military, it does go to a monopolized type of government, but then it doesn't get spent. It gets spent more in the free enterprise system. That's a little bit different, and we'll get to that a little bit here. So already it's very difficult for me to do this video, but I'm going to try to do the best I can to give you what we need to understand government spending. Or is mandatory fees as a percentage of income, sales, or property taxes? There's going to be some of that. Police and prisons and the like. There's some mandatory fees there as a percentage of income because prisons need to be funded. It can't just be voluntary. There is some mandatory funding on some of this stuff. But we want to go through competitive governance. That's the structure so you can understand it. Or mandatory fees to CRAs that are more like head taxes. So almost all fees we have has a percentage of the fees as a head tax. So there is a lot there. Okay, there are overlaps in all of these, so it is complicated. I'm sorry, but it is complicated. I gave you a lot of areas where it's complicated, so I'll do my best. Okay, everything that is currently being done will be required to be done. So can it be done better? Yes. But the 38%, getting up to probably 50% now, all those things, yes, you still have to educate your children, but it can be done through competitive governance. It's not going to monopolize government. 5% of GDP being done that way. It can be long-term student loans. It can be a lot of different things, but it can be done in different ways. So the mandatory nature of some of these fees that's definitionally challenging to tell you what we're talking about. But monopolized government, that's going down to less than 1% of GDP. And that is more of the oversight boards, oversight given authorization for anybody with inherent government power, such as police, judges, military people, and stuff. Those are the oversight boards. And but that doesn't require a lot of money, a lot of power to some degree, more oversight power, not regulatory power. So, but there'll be some regulations. Obviously, you have to be trained to be a military person. You have to be trained to be a police officer. You have to be trained to be a judge. You have to have oversight to make sure you're respecting civil liberties. The whole structure is there. So there is mandates that certain things need to be done. Is that a tax? Is that a spending? If it's not going through competitive, if it's not going through monopolized government. So there's a lot to be said here. However, with a lot more flexibility on how it is done, more in the free enterprise system. So free enterprise police, competitive governments dealing with police. So right there, you have to have a police contract. So is that a tax? It's mandatory. So in a way it's a tax, but in a way it's a fee. Again, definitionally challenging here. There will be a free enterprise benefits, lowering the price, but services still need to be done. So with 38 to 50% of what government's controlling right now, yeah, you still have to have health insurance. You still have to fund the military. You still have to get an education. You still have to have environmental controls. You still have to do a lot of things that the government is currently doing, but it's going to be more done in the free enterprise system. So the percentage of GDP that monopolized government's going to go to was going up to the 40s to 50%, currently to less than 1%, yes, but that's not the whole of it. You still require to get 5% GDP in many different type of, well, sales taxes mainly, to fund the military. So that's mandated. So, but that's going to a government, a monopolized government for funding, but then it's funding through free enterprise benefits, military corporations and stuff like that. Competitive governments only taxing or being funded by their members is only giving benefits to their members. That means it's acting like free enterprise, even with the name of the competitive government. So government, yes, competitive government's acting like free enterprise, but it's not the monopolized government. So I'm going to try to differentiate, sorry about saying that bad word badly. Differentiate, I can't say it now. Anyway, competitive governments is still governments, but it's not acting as a monopolized government. So I'm going to try to say monopolized government or competitive governance, and then really try to be honest with, is it mandated to contribute towards it? Mostly it's yes, or such as police and prisons and the like. But roads, that's different. You got private sector roads with the transponder system and the like. So let's keep on going through it. Two big mandates. 5% GDP going for foreign policy. That's being done in sales tax. That has to be done. That has to be given to the federal and some to the state government for creating a military. 5% for the charity, but that's a full replacement for welfare, all of welfare. So, but what is welfare? Is it Medicaid or is it Medicare? Medicare is more for the elderly, so we try to separate that off. But it's healthcare. Is it in healthcare budget or is it in the charity budget? Again, it's very difficult to say, depending on Medicaid's more in the charity bucket. Medicare is more like in the retirement budget. So then there is no healthcare budget but there are requirements that you have health insurance. So you're not becoming a burden on society. A significant negative externality is what they need to stop. So it's not going to be a full health insurance plan, but there has to be some health insurance to some degree, so people aren't becoming a burden on society, so people aren't on the side of the road without the ability to get some health care when it's only going to be a couple $1,000 to save somebody's life. But hey, you don't have insurance, you don't have the money right now, and you get left on the side of the road. That's a significant negative externality, so we don't want that. And the agreement to be a citizen is that you stop or take reasonable steps not to become a burden on society. So again, there's a lot there. 5% of GDP for military, foreign policy, and the private military will match about the current spending. That includes foreign policy and the like. Again, definitionally, this might be a decrease. It might be a small increase from just military. Some of this will have to go into a budget for war budget. Like I want 20% of this money going strictly into a declared war budget where the money's not there. I mean, the money's set aside, 20% of the money is set aside. So when there is a declared war, an actual declared war, then the money gets released to fight that war. Okay, 5% of GDP for the charity system. It's a mandate, but it never touches a monopolized government. You fund the charities. Well, it's a charitable distribution association that matches your philosophy of how you want to do charity. So you have about 12 different choices at the local level, state level, federal level. This is a reduction of the current system. However, there's going to be a lot of benefits, a lot of productivity and efficiency benefits. People may donate more than their mandate, but it's hard to determine where that's going to fall out. The charity system is structured to be much better than the welfare system. In my opinion, it is. CRAs competing will bring productivity and efficiencies. The charity system was created to encourage people in need to assist others. So the people in need, people getting benefits right now, they are going to be helping others, whether if it's a single mother in dramatic need of different things, maybe they'll have to take in some other children for nanny services and the like, or two mothers to get together and they help each other with childcare, so one can work the late shift, one can work the early shift, and work it out together. So there's going to be ways that the charity system is going to be able to economize and have people who are in need help each other out, so the dollar amount's not so heavy. Education, work skills, and jobs within the charity economy is promoted. Real work will be done by the people in need. That helps them get their job training and get them out of that need in the first place to be independent, or at least the highest level of interdependence possible for that person. That's what the charity system's made to do. And every charity and every assessor organization, the case managers will be tasked with how can we quickly get somebody to be independent, or the greatest level of interdependency. Requirements for health insurance will be there. However, that amount is going to be dealt with by rating floors, and it will be dealt with by insurance companies and the charity systems. If there's too much need in the charity system for a certain amount of health care, then insurance regulations will have to be increased standards to have more taken care of by insurance, so people aren't becoming a burden on the charity system, because we don't want that percentage to go up from 5% to much higher. So the insurance is going to have to start taking care of some of that, which means you have that burden as well. So is that government spending? In a way it is, because it's mandatory. In a way it's not. It never touches a monopolized government. Okay, there's a certain mandates for police, courts, and prison funding through CRAs, with some of it relating to a percentage of sales, income, or property value. So if you own a business and you have a lot of sales going through, a big business with a whole bunch of trucks delivering, and you're doing a lot of stuff, you need that police protection. You need to have a court contract. You need to have a prison contract. Prison contract's a little bit different. I don't want to get into that right now, but you will be funding prisons. Every business and every individual will be funding prisons through different methods and stuff. That's a low percentage, but it is there, and we can go to the prison page for that. The new banking system will not be able to use the inflation tax. So we take the inflation tax all off the table. It's being used way too much right now, but with the new currency I have, competitive currencies all backed up by things of real value, the competitive competitive currency system is going to work a lot better. And maybe somebody would want to do some taxing through there, but it's going to be honest and visible and in plain sight, not hidden the way it is now. Education is roughly 5 to 6% of GDP. It has grown over the last 3 or 4 years, and I don't think that's a good thing, but other people think it's a good thing. There's a debate about that, but that is going to be, yes, you have to educate your children. You have to get educated yourself. There's going to be new ways to fund it, but it's not going to be going through taxes as much. It can act like a tax to a certain degree. Long-term student loans act like a tax, and it can be done based off of your human capital, your increased earnings, your percentage of income. Your loans can be structured in many different ways over lifetime, like it is now. Lifetime education tax is a lifetime education tax. You get funded up front. The government pays for your education, and then for the rest of your life, you're paying about $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year on education taxes. It has to come out of somewhere, but we're spending quite a bit of money on that. $1.3 trillion over 100 million households is about $12,000 per household. That's a lot of money, and that is for life. So for 110 or so million households. Okay, people that went through public education will pay a 5% personal income tax to pay off the long-term debt, similar to the current system. So if you went through public school system, or you sent your young before age 12, before age 13 child to the public school system, and they pay for it, then you are paying that long-term personal income tax. But if you did not go through that public school system. You homeschooled, you went to private schools or whatever, or a percentage of that, because let's say that you did half of your education through public and half through private or homeschool. So that is correcting the current injustice. There's a major injustice going on right now with people who are not being benefited by government-funded education, but they're paying that tax. So that needs to be corrected. But on the people who had government pay for their public education, they have to pay that back. And then everybody from here on out, as they go through education, they're going to have to do that long-term loan, pay as you go, however you want to do it. There's a lot of ways to structure it. Okay, I just talked about this. Human capital loans as assets in the competitive currency is one. You can look at a blog I have on that on my website. Social Security and Medicare taxes and benefits will transition to mandated personal retirement plans. So it's great that the elderly have income and medical care. This system's going to give it as well, because there's going to be a mandate. We're going to get rid of Social Security, Medicare. We're going to fulfill the promises by putting money into long-term annuities for the people who are already on it or near to it. And then people who are under age of 50, the tax will stay there because, hey, it's not funded right now. So we still have to tax. And it's not fair, but it's the best system I can come up with to transition Social Security and Medicare to personal retirement plan. So we fulfill promises, long-term annuities, and then have a tax mechanism to deal with that. So yes, there is a tax. We get rid of the current tax, we replace it with another tax, kind of similar, payroll tax, but it's going to be for everybody under 50, and everybody under 50 is not going to get any Social Security. That goes away. We have to limit the debt we have. We have to limit that liability. Social Security and Medicare taxes is not currently funded. Thus, they will create a huge debt in the transition. So we have to pay that tax. Then we talked about this a little bit. You can read that to understand it. But look at my full Social Security transition. Now, how does this affect the current GDP? Again, definitionally, it's challenging. For people under the age of 50, they have to keep on paying a tax, but then they have to save up for their own retirement as well, because we have to limit that liability. We have to limit that debt so the taxes aren't so heavy that it just buries everybody. I put the cost of the rating system at about 0.5% of GDP, or about $100 billion, which is that's still a lot of money, or about $1,000 average per 100 million households. So I do have a rough estimate about how much the rating system is. However, the rating system, there might be some services that we want to do within there. Now, this is replacing some current systems we have out there. There's current systems for rating financial institutions and other rating systems to rate other things. So this will be replacing a lot of current expenses in the free enterprise system and within government. But I think this is structured much better, and it's going to give better benefits. A 50-year 5% payroll tax to offset the major debt from Social Security and Medicare will be for everybody under the age of 50, and will defray that cost of that debt. Again, so that's there. Yes, we have that 5% payroll tax. So that's there. You can't get rid of it. But after 50 years, it's going to be getting rid of, because we're going to get rid of that debt. And hopefully we have to slowly get rid of it, and we have to have a plan for that. The competitive governance structure calls for government assets to be sold into the competitive governments. So every asset we have in the government right now, every asset will be sold to either competitive governments or free enterprise businesses. And that's going to pay down the massive debt, because we have a massive $31 trillion debt. States have debt, then unfunded liabilities. People are pricing this well into the hundreds of trillions of dollars. And $1 trillion is roughly, what, $10,000 per household for the 100 million households. So it's a lot of money. So when you're talking about 100 times that, it could be like $1 million per household long term in debt. So that's a lot of money, but if you limit that with Social Security, how much that's paying out and how much we have to pay for annuities, we can limit that to some degree. And then $1 million is really not but so much to pay off. It sounds like a ton per household, but businesses will be paying this. A lot of people will be paying this, and it has to be paid to somebody. I mean, all debt has to be paid back to somebody. Whatever is currently being made now is going to be used by people now. Whoever's getting that payment will be putting that back into the economy. So in some ways, it's moving from one person to another, one business to another, businesses, people, whatever, to government. Then government's a transition to giving it back to who it belongs to. So, and a lot of that is just unfunded liabilities. Okay, all roads, schools. Okay, these are the things, assets that are going to be sold into the from current government, which is everything, but every road sold to a private road corporation. Every school sold to either competitive school boards or to private schools. Every piece of government land, it's a lot of government land out there, we're going to sell it all. Now, some of it's going to be mandated to stay nature and environmentally friendly and the like. So there's part of that. So it's not all going to be high value dollar amounts, but all of it's going to be sold. And there's a system for that. Look at my land and water sector on my website. Military assets, all of it's going to be sold to military corporations. We fundamentally change how the military works and how it's funded and how we get the military capabilities. It's a full system, but it's going to bring in many, many trillions of dollars, if not tens of trillions of dollars over time. Now, obviously, we have to pay for that. So in some ways, it's a way to return debt, but then you have military corporations worth a lot of money. Again, it's complicated, but that's going to help pay off some debt. Government buildings, all government buildings to a very, very large degree will be either bought by free enterprise benefits, competitive governments, renting office space and the like. Prisons, all of it's going to go to competitive prisons, and these are competitive businesses, competitive governance, and but they're going to still need to be used. People still have to pay taxes, but these businesses have to actually buy the prisons and public hospitals and government land. Everything that currently that government owns has to be bought by either a competitive governance or a private business, and this has to be this will be paying back the debt. It will put assets into these businesses, which in some instances are going to help pay down the debt, because government currently owns all the roads. Well, most of the roads. There's private roads out there right now. However, that's minimal. Okay, let's keep on going. Finally, there is another tax to deal with a total debt with a 50-year payoff. So after we sell off all government land, government property, government assets, which is going to bring in tens of trillions of dollars, and once we settle everything up, what is the liability out there? What is the debt liability? And that's hard to determine. And the best accountants might be able to come close, but there's still going to be a pretty darn large margin of error because there's so many factors. We're going to dollar cost average sell these assets into the free enterprise system and competitive governance. The assets are going to be there as assets, and anyway, so there's that debt there. There's going to be a tax to pay that off. Everything that is currently being done will likely be required to be done, at least to some degree, or it's going to be done in the free enterprise system. Roads are still going to need to be used, so we're going to be paying by transponder and paying through a system for paying for roads, but we're going to pay for the roads that we use. So it's not going to be coming out of tax. But hey, is that a tax or not a tax? I say it's not a tax, it's a user fee. A lot of times user fees are considered tax, but this is a different type of user fee. It's directly the roads that you're using. So it's not like a gas tax. Gas taxes are going away. You still have to pay the transponder fees at the gas pump, or if you pay it a different way, that's fine too. but you have to prove that you pay for it while getting gas, or at least you have your transponder charged up. So there's so much to be considered here. However, with a lot more flexibility on how it's done, more in the free enterprise system. So again, 35 minutes on to try to answer what percentage of GDP is government going to control after the competitive governance system goes into place. Very hard to say. I go back to this. Everything still has to be done, and it's likely going to be required to be done. Everything that's currently being done by government will be required to be done. Military, 5%. Charity, 5%. That's basic. You still have to have your police contracts and your prison contracts, and you have to pay all your CRA fees in all your sectors at all 3 levels of government. All that's going to be expensive. It still has to be done. So in a way, we're not reducing down how much we have to spend, with the exception of better efficiencies, better productivities, things being done in the free enterprise system versus things being done by government through monopolized tax. So anyway, I'm going to close this off now. Sorry it's not a better answer, but I'm just talking about the definitional challenges of the what we're talking about here. Everything's can be found at Haley2024.org. Please consider a donation, and until the next video.